Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup College Football Podcast for Week 6, Part 2. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Buck Metrics, and in Part 1, if you want to go back, you can talk about how we recapped last week, made a couple of quick look-ahead stuff for this week. Now we're going to talk about our picks for this weekend, and we're going to do kind of our deeper dives. So, um, let's get started with you, Buck. What are your Narduzzi Awards for this week?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned last week, I'm trying to phrase these more in terms of a question and make this a little more interactive. So this Narduzzi is a question in terms of who would we expect in the coaching community other than Pat Narduzzi to win a hard-fought backyard brawl and then lose to a Georgia Tech team that just fired its coach? Is there anybody else that we would expect to do that? And this is pretty much why we named this after him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head. I mean, the thing of it is, though, I could see this kind of being the case where it's like they hated him and they wanted him gone. And they're like, oh, okay, he's gone now. Now we'll do things, right? And it's possible that this was kind of like, okay, this is like a cathartic game for them, and Pittsburgh could have gotten caught sleeping by it, right? So, but no, though, at the same time, though, right? Like this is it's kind of an interesting point, right? Because we've seen games where teams fire their head coach, right? We saw Nebraska got obliterated by Oklahoma. We saw what else? We saw Colorado fail to cover the spread after, or no, well, oh no, sorry, they didn't actually fire their head coach. We saw Arizona State fail to cover the spread against Washington after they fired their head coach. Um, who else has been fired this year so far? Um,
Well, then the other two are just after that.
yeah, it was
Oh,
so
yeah, we're missing one though.
we're
Who was
missing
it?
one. No, because Scott Frost got fired. Herm Edwards got fired.
And Jeff Collins.
Jeff
Yeah,
Collins, but that was Georgia Tech. Was he the
yeah,
third one to get fired then?
yeah. We're up to five now. Yes,
Yeah, because it's
with
Jeff. It's Jeff
with
Collins.
Darrell and Christ.
Yeah, Carl Durrell, and Christ from Wisconsin. So yeah, so I mean, so now teams that have covered that basically have fired their head coach are now 1-2 ATS, and I believe 1-2 straight up now after firing their head coach. So not the greatest record, but very small sample size there, obviously. But no, it's yeah. I mean, it, yeah, just a weird result. Like this team should have been in disarray. Like again, with less than a week before. 'Cause again, these guys usually don't get fired on Sunday. They usually get fired on like Monday, and then you have to then it's like okay, starting Tuesday you start instituting a new battle plan. Well, okay, guess what? You're playing on Saturday, so you really have like 3 or 4 days to even build this because there's probably a travel day in there somewhere for a lot of this stuff, right? So like you barely get to change any sort of tactics going into one week. How could you not just outbeat the Jeff Collins strategy for you? I don't understand it. But again, that's Pitt, right? So now we'll see Pitt like destroy someone.
Yeah,
They'll
exactly.
like beat Clemson now. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It was weird. The thing the spread was like 24 or something. I had it at 20, and I'm just like I'm not gonna play that. But like fascinating that my model was like, yeah, no, Pittsburgh isn't as good as the spread is saying, and sure enough, it wasn't. So, but yeah,
yeah. That game was actually at Pitt, and they gave up 26 to Georgia Tech, which is sick. I think that's by far Georgia Tech's best. Well, except for West Carolina, and they only scored Pitt only scored 21, which is just embarrassing. Which shout out to all the football Twitter folks who said in August that Pitt would be better off with Slovis over Pickett and this kid Mumpfield over Jordan Addison. I don't think that's quite turned out that way so far. I don't know if you feel differently than me. Um,
no,
okay, no objection.
I mean, again, like that's such a bitter thing. Like, oh, we're better than that wide receiver. We're better without him. Like, you're not. So
Yeah,
good luck.
okay. That's why he went to USC, so you get a better guy in his place.
What one actually
Um,
quickly one more thing I will say about Pittsburgh before we go off them. Kenny Pickett not horrible in his debut there with Pittsburgh on the weekend, which again kind of the theory of like if your guys start looking good in the NFL, it means that it was them, not you, right? So
mhm.
Kenny Pickett, the thing of it is, interestingly enough, none of his passes actually hit the dirt. He threw 10 passes, 10 to his own team, 3 to a different team. But the three that were interceptions, though, they were like they hit his wide receiver in the hand, and it was just like deflected to the other team. So like still like not really turnover worthy throws, but like they were intercepted. So but not bad for Pittsburgh at all, honestly. So yeah, like Kenny Pickett, not bad. But then again, now you come back to Pittsburgh and you're like, oh, so that guy was carrying your team. So this team is actually not good then, right? So because now you're losing Jordan Addison and this good quarterback, right? So something to look forward to for Pittsburgh.
Yep. And yeah, just that was just the most pit thing. It's just that made it a pit season, what we just saw. um, all right. This is I'm certainly not the first to make this point, but it definitely merits some discussion here. So Wisconsin fires Paul Christ. Is this their Nebraska fires Solich moment, or is it their Nebraska fires Bo Pelini moment, or is
Oh,
it neither?
yeah, I like how we have examples of Nebraska firing good coaches and firing bad coaches. That's the most Nebraska thing ever. I mean, this guy wasn't bad. He had a half decent record. Like Wisconsin has not been horrible. Have they been elite? No, but have they been horrible? Also no, right? Like this isn't like it they're underperforming expectations, yeah, but like not as much as like Texas has. Like they're underperforming expectations, but like they're better than like Texas. I think Texas is kind of the standard for like kind of head coach purgatory, right? I don't know. I like if they have someone lined up who they want and they think is better than him, then okay, I think that's the right move. Like if they had someone they wanted and they were afraid of losing them, sure. But if that's not the case, if you just did this because you thought you had to do something after losing to Illinois, that's not good. That's a problem, and I think that's the issue there.
How can you have somebody lined up in the beginning of October? I don't. Now I
Well,
say
someone
this
you
as
want,
somebody.
right? You're like, we want this guy, right? And you're like, we're
Yeah.
gonna do everything we can to get that guy. But then at the same time, it's like you want like if you have someone in mind, like I think their concern was like, okay, if we don't jump at someone now, then like Georgia Tech or Arizona State or Nebraska, because right, Nebraska would be a direct competitor, same division. They could get them before us, right? So
All right. Well, wanting a guy is not the same as being able to execute it. Um, I can't imagine that they have anything really in place with anybody, especially that would be worth firing a proven head coach now. Um, I don't know if they were in a panic, kind of to your point about Nebraska grabbing Lance Leipold, who continues to do great work at Kansas and just has a great resume, and he's from Wisconsin. I don't know if they were worried about maybe losing Jim Leonard, their defensive coordinator. Um, but yeah, they looked horrible, but it, you know, I hate the firing because I knew this is going to be a rough season for them. When a defense that's that good loses that many folks, it evidently takes a step back. And when you're taking a step back and it means Graham Mertz has to do more, it's gonna be a rough season. And I think that making firing somebody in that situation really means to me that the athletic director doesn't understand what football really is in terms of realistic expectations. Um, he's just made, I think, the biggest mistake that an athletic director can make. Speaking of Nebraska, which is not really understanding your place in the college football universe. If you can get a great coach, then you fire a good coach. I'm not a fan of it, but if you can do it, great. The thing is, Wisconsin is not Ohio State, it's not Michigan, and it's I like them a lot. Jump is my favorite college football tradition, but they're not a place that can just cut a big check and get anybody that they want. That's not what they are. That's not their place in the college football universe. Um, Maybe they did it now because long term it wasn't going to work out, and they saw that they have the Northwestern game coming up, and maybe they think that this gives them an easy chance to kind of get momentum with the new coach in place and change the narrative of the season. Okay, that that makes maybe the timing okay, but I still think the decision just sucks.
Well, momentum for what?
Yeah.
Like they're not
Yeah.
momentum for the Rose Bowl. Like they're not going to the Rose Bowl. Like yeah, momentum for I don't know the Peach Bowl. They're not going to the Peach Bowl either. Like I don't even know what bowl game. Like the Duke. They could go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl again. Like I don't like. It's just I have concern. Like again, if your first thing is immediately okay, we're gonna go internally to Leonard. Like what's he gonna do? He's been there the entire time. Like if he had a problem, if he said, "Hey, we should be coaching Graham Mertz differently," he would have just said that, and like they may have would have done. Like it's not like I don't think Chris was sitting there being like, "No, no, no, I know how to coach Graham Mertz." Like no, like he would listen to input on some of this stuff, right? It's not like this guy didn't have input on decision making, and you're just telling me this guy's now gonna like what is he gonna do in the next couple months? Now again, longer term, obviously you can get a different quarterback, you can restock a little bit on talent. I think Wisconsin eventually can be with like donor money. If they're a big enough school, I guess, with donor money, they could eventually start competing with some of this stuff. And they probably need to start gearing things up for the NIL era. But like longer term, though, like short term though, I don't see this benefiting this Wisconsin team this year. Like I think the problem is they lost to Illinois, and I think Illinois is better than people think they are, and I think or like
Hmm.
it's so I think people are like this Illinois team is it's like oh they lost this guy lost to Illinois. Well, what if Illinois is like what if Illinois wins the Big Ten West, right? Like that's the thing, right? Is that you lost the team that won the Big Ten West, right? So
Illinois should be undefeated right now.
yeah,
They
I don't
lost
know
one
how they
game on a
lost.
bad call.
Yeah, I don't know how they lost to Indiana. Like the thing is, it's so crazy that you have these crazy swings on seasons, right? Like we bet Indiana in that game and we were gifted like now I would not you could not pay me to bet Indiana
Mm-mm.
against Illinois. But
No.
we bet Indiana and we won. And now I'm just thinking back to how horrible of a call that was, but it paid off and that's the thing. So no, I like this team is has some problems and by just by getting rid of the head coach it's not going to fix them. Maybe next year if they have a new quarterback, but like there's a couple problems here in Wisconsin. It's not just it was definitely not just the head coach.
Yeah, and you know, what's been missing has been the defense, and that's not Leonard's fault. It's they're a young defense, and you gave up 38 points to Tommy DeVito with Illinois. Um, I just can't follow the narrative on that one. Going with Mertz was a mistake, but it's not a fireable one. Basically, is how I see it. So sorry, Wisconsin. Bad decision, and I think you're going to regret this one. So.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? They could spend a couple years if they go with Leonard, right? Because maybe they were afraid Leonard was going to get picked up by someone, and
Hmm.
then they're like, okay, let's just because it's a similar situation to the Dallas Cowboys. There was rumblings they wanted to get rid of McCarthy and replace him with the offensive coordinator who was rumored for some head coaching jobs. So maybe they thought they needed to act now to lock him up, and then they'll go with him for a couple years. But again, like 2 3 years down the road, if he's not doing well, they'll get rid of him. Right, like this is the thing.
Yeah.
Wisconsin is not like a poverty program. They actually can do things, right? So
Yep.
if
Well,
but the thing of it is though, it's going to be very painful for 3 years. This could like of all the firings so far, I think this was the least justified and has the potential to do the most amount of damage for any to the programs that we've talked about so far for firings.
and again, this goes back. Yeah, I agree with everything you say. The one thing I don't know if I'd really take issue with what you say, but just to give a little more color on it is if you are a program that legitimately can fire a guy with Paul Christ's resume, um, you're not a program that should be make an internal promotion, and your head coach is a first time head coach. If you're firing a guy with that resume, you bring on somebody that's a lot more accomplished, and maybe that's where they wind up. But nothing adds up. So, end of my rant against Wisconsin. I'm breaking up with you, Wisconsin. Maybe I'll be back with you next year. But I'm done with you for now. I think I broke up with him when I bet him under 9 wins, anyways. So they just made it official. All right. The next Narduzzi. This is a question, and I ask this because I think a lot of the times there's some bad conflation between fans on Twitter and actual teams. And I heard some preseason pods say, "Hey, Oklahoma needs to get it together. They're not focused. And it's like, nah, that's their fans. Their team, I'm sure, is focused. They have a new coach. Having said that, is giving up 55 points to TCU the price that Oklahoma had to pay for their fans shitting all over Lincoln Riley after he left? Um, because guess who's offensive coordinator for TCU? It's one Garrett Riley, the brother of Lincoln, and I can guarantee you that he did. If he had time to score 100 points, he would have in that game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the problem with this Oklahoma team is like we were right about it early on, but then we got deceived a couple weeks in when they were undefeated, and we're like, oh, maybe this is old Oklahoma, right? And I think that was wrong. But the thing is, again, we've changed. Part of the thing in a season, you change your mind. We've already changed your mind back, right? So yeah, I think we're back to this team is like flawed, is good, but like flawed. And I
Hmm.
think the second you don't have Dylan Gabriel under center, I think you start having some problems. And I
Yeah.
think because like he's a large part of that offense and able to do a lot of the pieces. So yeah, I think I'm a little concerned for this Sooners team, right? 'Cause we had concerns about it when they lost Lincoln Riley, and then it seemed like those were fine. Like, oh, this team's doing okay, but now maybe not. Now again, this week they get to play Red River, right? So they're 7 point dogs. What could possibly like Texas is 7 point favorites? What could possibly go wrong for Texas, right? So,
It's just
um,
such
but
an anxiety bowl. Like
exactly.
both fan bases are going to absolutely lose it if they lose that game. Whoever loses that game is just going to be like, we're done.
I'm not officially making a pick for that game, but like I suspect the correct play is just take the points. Um, Red River's always a fun game. No matter
Yeah.
how bad or good the two teams are, it's always just fun. I'll take the points. I don't think West Virginia's that good, so Texas blowing them out is not the most indicative thing. Like this Texas team has improved, but only marginally. I think people are not like, okay, they didn't trip over their own shoes beating West Virginia. They're fine now. Well, that's not how that works. I don't know. I'm more inclined to go Oklahoma in that game. But like it's like even let's say Oklahoma wins this week, right? There's still two conference losses. They're probably not going to the Big 12 Campus Championship game unless just some chaos starts happening, like just mass chaos. Like they're gonna need
Yeah.
Kansas to beat TCU this weekend just to start. Like you're gonna need some crazy stuff to start happening here to even get back to the Big 12 championship. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned about them this year and maybe in the future, right? And again, Dylan Gabriel, right? If they start struggling this year, he doesn't owe them anything. He could be gone next year. He could be, I don't. Well, Alabama I think has their own quarterback, but he could be any. He could be transferring to another Power Five school and be their quarterback next year, right? I actually don't. I wouldn't be surprised if we eventually see Dylan Gabriel in the NFL. So like this is the thing. This Oklahoma team may have been papered over by how good Dylan Gabriel is, and um, they might like we might eventually get to the point where like Oklahoma like goes into the TC because they're going to the SEC in 2 years. They could flop, and then they could be firing what's his name? I can't remember who
Venables.
they could be firing Venables like year one into their SEC
Yep.
stint, right? So yeah, I'm kind of still. I was originally bearish on Oklahoma, flipped. Now I'm back to being bearish on them again. So we'll see.
You know what's awesome is everything that you said, you can pretty much just say about Texas as well. All the way through the firing after 1 year in the
Yeah, that's
SEC.
yeah, that's true. Well, the thing of it is like. I mean, to be fair, Texas is basically a year ahead of the curve on Oklahoma in terms of that. But still, though, like I mean, if if uh, if Sarkeesian loses this game, and he loses to TCU and he loses to Kansas. Like if he doesn't make a bowl this year, I don't know if he makes it to next year. I don't know though. We'll have to see.
I
But
I think Arch Manning gives him some runway.
because he got him, I guess
Um, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
we're
Maybe
gonna
maybe
we're gonna
Arch Manning holds this whole thing in his hands.
let's see. I mean, well, here's the thing. If Peyton Manning calls up the athletic director in Texas and says, "Hey, I'm not a big fan of Sarkeesian anymore," he's gone the next day, right? So yeah,
Yeah, good point. All right. So recently, James Franklin, Mel Tucker, and Jimbo Fisher each received crazy 10-year contract extensions. So my question is, since two of these guys, again, just turned in an actual turd last week, which of any of these three will make it through all 10 years of that contract with any renegotiations downward?
You mean without, right? Yeah. I think James Franklin, which is crazy. And again, I am not a fan of Penn State, but I think Penn State plays in a division, in a conference where you can definitively set yourself up for more wins than you can win more games than you can in, say, like the SEC or with, like, I think Penn State is at a certain level with James Franklin. I think that level is good enough to beat, like, what? How many teams are in the Big Ten? 12? 12 now.
14 now.
14 now, or 14 in a couple of years?
14 now. It's going to be 16.
Oh, 14 now. Okay, fine. So they're better than 12 of the teams.
Hmm.
No, sorry, they're better than 11 of the team. They're the 12th team, but they're worse than like two of the teams. And that two can vary depending on the year. They're probably worse than Michigan and Ohio State.
Yep.
But if you're good enough to beat all those other teams, and then you're still good enough to beat most of the teams from other conferences too, like your Auburns and your whatever, and if you can strategically schedule bad ones and beat them, then I think it's enough to survive, right? I think you're able to say, okay, don't fire me, because, like, the thing is, like, how much? Look at the amount of hype that's on Penn State right now. They're 10th in the nation, which was the most painfully obvious thing. They were going to be top 10 this week. I called it out last week. Here we are now. They're good enough where they can get insane hype, but then not bad enough that they lose random games to, like, Illinois or something, right? Like, they're good enough that they can actually get hype, but then like, oh man, tough loss there to Michigan, tough loss to Ohio State. Oh well, oh man, you know who could really do well this year? Penn State. Penn State could really do well. Like, and this cycle
Hmm.
repeats every year and repeats and repeats and repeats, and I just don't see it ending, right? Because, like, eventually they will take down a Michigan. Eventually, probably in a year or two, they'll take down Michigan. Maybe in an off year they'll take out Ohio State, but then someone else will be rising up in the Big Ten. That's like, they'll eventually beat those. Like, I think he'll be able to meet expectations just enough, but perennially, like, not be the best, but meet the expectations. But also at the same time generate enough hype that they'll be fine. Also, if they didn't have Sean Clifford, they may actually be not half bad, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think between that, having Aller's the best quarterback probably that he's had, and he's the next guy. And with that, and then going away from divisions, which I think is the expectation, once UCLA and USC come aboard, I think that you're going to have a lot easier schedule where you're not playing all of Michigan and Ohio State every single year. There's probably going to be a lot of years where they only get one of them. Um, and I don't think it's as if that absence is going to be filled every time by USC. So I think they're looking at a lot easier schedule going forward too. And I think they could probably make the Big Ten championship game a lot more frequently than they have so far under Franklin.
Mhm. Speaking of divisions, just quickly offhand about that, I'd absolutely, like, right now college football is trying out the whole new division no division thing, which is basically a tactile, which is basically like a tacit admission that geography doesn't matter anymore. That, like, we
Hmm.
don't care if we have to fly our guys 3 hours to the other side of the coast. It doesn't matter to us anymore. So I think, like, I'd love to see this in other sports, right? Like, in a lot of ways, divisions, like in baseball and in the NFL and in the
Hmm.
NHL to a lesser extent, they're relics of the past. They're relics of, okay, we want our guys to have small, like, short travel times, all in the same time zone, so we're not messing with their body clock, right? Like, again, as a person who lives near Toronto, near the Blue Jays, right? I'm a Blue Jays fan. AL East, the most competitive division in baseball every year, hands down.
Yeah,
Why? Why are we in the same division as the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Rays? Like, there's literally no reason for that to exist anymore. Like, there was a time when air travel was still not in its infancy where it made sense that you didn't want to have people be on planes for so long, but, like, you can hop on a plane and be in go to the visit the Dodgers in a couple hours, right? Like, we're developing more techniques where people can athletes can fix their body clock, so just the trip across country doesn't matter as much, right? So no, it's like, now that college football is experimenting by getting rid of these, which, to be honest, they were kind of the ones where it made the most sense for, right? Because you had all these athletic departments with kind of shoestring budgets, and you're like, I don't want to fly my guys to the other side of the country for a random game. Now they don't care. They're like, yeah, sure, we don't care. We'll go to
Hmm.
California. We'll go to USC. It doesn't matter. They're raking in millions of dollars a year, millions and millions and millions. They don't care about chartering a plane, right? So I'd love to start seeing that get getting rid of the divisions. I'd love to see that start expanding to other sports as well. Like NFL would be great in the NFL if you got rid of divisions and like I mean there's some rivalries and you could protect some rivalries, but outside of that, like there's no reason why we need divisions in other sports.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that. Yeah, baseball would be really good. That would be cool. Kind of old school before they had divisions way back when. Um, okay, so my deeper dive, like I promised in part one, this whole thing about the group of five team that's going to get the New Year's Day Bowl bid is a fascinating mess. And when you say fascinating mess, that's where we run in with, a deeper dive. So I'm going to attack these basically from worst G5 conference to best G5 conference. The MAC. In the MAC, only Toledo and Eastern Michigan have less than 3 losses. So we're not going to see any team from the MAC get that bid. Not even a contender. It just isn't going to happen. Conference USA. Conference USA, the host of probably my favorite non-USC moment of the college football weekend with that awesome end of the first half of UTEP at Charlotte, conversion on second and 30. Um, they're not going to do it either. Everybody has at least 2 losses. Their biggest win is Middle Tennessee over Miami. Middle Tennessee got embarrassed by a Sun Belt team, and they just lost by 15 to UTSA. So nobody from Conference USA is going to be making that bid either. That takes me to the Mountain West. So if I'm looking at the teams with less than 3 losses, Boise State getting blown out at UTEP just kills their chances. They're not going to get it because of that. Even if they run the table, that's just poison. San Jose State is interesting. They're 3-1. They're 1-0 in conference. Their only loss is at Auburn, and it was a close game. I think they lost by 8 points. They still have to play UNLV and at Fresno State, although we're not sure exactly where Fresno State is. If Hayner is back, they could be tough. Um, it's not impossible for them to actually get there, but they need kind of an improbable series of events. They're by far the highest rated Mountain West team by Buck Metrics ratings. So there's a little bit of life there, but just so many things have to fall into place for the Spartans. Um, Air Force, if you look at their schedule, they're just kind of in a tough spot. They've only lost one game. That loss to Wyoming is aging badly, as Wyoming just looks a little bit worse and worse. They still have to play at UNLV and Boise. They need too many things to fall in place, and all three of these teams they're kind of stuck where they don't have a chance for an eye-catching win, and they're just too far off the grid so far. Um, so I can't really see any of them making it. And believe me, I didn't set this up, although this is going to sound like it. So that leaves in the Mountain West Conference the UNLV Running Rebels at 4-1 and undefeated at 2-0. They still have to play at San Jose State. And here's where it gets interesting. They play at Notre Dame, and they're going to host maybe an Air Force team with 1 loss. The chances are small, but the path is definitively there. You can see that basically they have the best path, not the best chance, but the best path of any of the teams that we've talked about so far. Also, they're the second highest rated team by Buck Metrics in the Mountain West, so it's not like they have to play way, way over their heads. Basically, well, I'll say this: they play at San Jose State this weekend, this Friday, one of those CBS Sports Friday night specials, also known as the Rebel Network. If they win that, it's not officially on, but it's on watch, we'll say. Um, so we go to the American. The teams that have less than 3 losses: UCF, ECU, Memphis. They're below average or just barely average, and I don't see any of these teams making it with 3 losses. Tulane, who we talked about in part one, they're ranked 26 overall in the All FBS by Buck Metrics, so that puts them on the grid, and they have a path because they have. If they can beat Cincinnati, who's currently ranked and figures to probably stay ranked, I can actually see something of a case here for Tulane to make it as well. Um, And the other team in the American obviously is Cincinnati. They have the clearest path. Basically, if they win out, as they're already ranked and the top ranked G5 team, they would get the bid, but it's not without hurdles. So let's just kind of reset. Going through those four conferences so far, UNLV has a path, but it's really unlikely. Um, Tulane has a path. It's not as unlikely, but it's still unlikely. And then Cincinnati has they have the clearest path. They have losable games though. I think at SMU is losable, hosting Tulane is losable, and then a conference title game. And they've already lost one. So I think if they lose a second one, if I'm a Cincinnati fan, I definitely would not be counting that bid as a done deal if I have two losses, even if I win the conference. It's kind of questionable. So we've got serious questions going through those four conferences so far. And that takes us to my friends in the Sun Belt Conference. So the Sun Belt, for some context, overall as a conference, their rating is a 1.2, which puts it barely behind the ACC and the Pac-12, and it actually puts them well ahead of the American. They are by far the best G5 conference so far. So who do we have as logical contenders? Now I'm going to use my words very carefully here. Logical contenders for the conference title game that could have a claim to the New Year's Six bid. Coastal Carolina is 5-0. South Alabama is 4-1. This is what gets interesting, though. The Sun Belt team with the best chance to win out in the conference also has a game at a Power 5 venue. James Madison is at Louisville. James Madison, I actually have as my top rated G5 team. And actually, probably more important to the regular humans on this planet is that they are the second rated G5 team in both the coaches poll and the AP poll. So they're on the nerd grid and the voters grids both. Does that put them on the playoff committee's bid? Well, let's come back to that in a second. They could end their season undefeated, the regular season, undefeated with a win at home over an otherwise undefeated Coastal Carolina team. That has got to be the best resume. They'll be undefeated. They will have given Coastal Carolina their only win. This sounds, and let's not forget, they boat raced that Middle Tennessee team that beat Miami. So they've got a transitive dominant win. This
And they
is,
beat just one more thing, and they beat
yeah,
App State, which beat Texas A&M.
that's right. Yep. This sounds to me like the strongest bid for the New Year's Bowl bid. So why do I bring this up? Because the NCAA is so stupid. This is their first year in FBS. So guess what? They can't play in the Sun Belt Conference title game. They are not eligible for a bowl. We are going to be stuck. It's not not at all improbable. In fact, I think it's possible, maybe not likely. It's very possible that the best team in the G5 who has the by far best claim to the New Year's Six Bowl won't even be in their own conference title game because of a dumb rule that nobody can explain to me.
Has anybody tried to explain it to you? Like I don't understand
I
why
don't I
is
don't
there
yeah I don't even know who to ask.
like my
Mark
only
Emmert?
is yeah, my only assumption is that that rule only exists because they didn't think it was going to matter. They're like, oh well, that team is probably going to suck anyway, so we'll just screw them in the postseason. It's not going to matter. But now they're like, oh shoot, we actually brought in a good FBS team now, or we brought a good FCS team into the FBS now, and now we have a problem. I mean, it's so dumb. Like they
Yeah.
grant waivers for anything else. Can they grant a waiver for this or not? Like, what's the purpose of this rule? Like, what's the purpose of this rule?
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And I got so excited I forgot. There's another very possible dimension here. You could have them being the only team to beat Coastal Carolina, who's going to be the Sun Belt Conference champ, who wins by beating a South Alabama team with only one loss. It's almost like the SEC of the G5, although Alabama just was ineligible because some jerk at the NCAA said, "I don't feel like letting you play in the postseason."
Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't understand why that rule exists. Like the whole point is you want to put the best teams out there, and like
Yeah.
what's the point in making like, oh, okay, well you're joining the FBS from the FCS. Well, you got to sit out a year in the postseason. Well, why? Well, because if you didn't, then other teams would want to join the FBS. Well, they clearly do, right? Like
Oh, God,
I don't like, yeah, like
can't let that happen.
yeah, can't let that happen even though we let you join. I have no idea how this makes any sense at all. So, no,
Yeah.
honestly, I feel so bad for this James Madison team. Like they're so fun and great to watch. I mean, they beat App State, which beat Texas A&M, beat Middle Tennessee State, which beat
Miami.
Miami. Just a absolutely fun team, and so sad if we're gonna have to sit there in December and January and not see them play just because of some weird stupid rule that doesn't really have any purpose for existing. And that's the thing, and it's so sad. And I mean, again, James Madison's not going anywhere. We're gonna see them again next year as well. But like, man, though, that'd be really sad if they go undefeated. I mean, I mean, what was it? Wasn't UCF had those like national champions hats
Yeah.
in what 20? What year was that? 16, I think, or 18, or one of those. I can't remember.
I'm definitely pushing for that. If they go to now they can't even play 12 games for whatever reason because I don't know, they committed the sin of moving up to FBS, but if they go 11-0, I'm pushing for that movement.
Yeah, well, so maybe we should get like a protest movement starting where like every AP writer ranks them one. So then, like, then there's like a protest
Yes,
of the that we should do that. We'll get that started now. We'll get that trending on Twitter if we get there. Like they get ranked unanimously first by the AP. That'd be so funny.
that
But
would be
no, like,
awesome.
the,
Yes.
it's such a fun team, and the rules that are like that are so stupid,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. So that actually will tie into my deeper dive. If you're good.
Yep.
So my deeper dive kind of is going to be kind of saying on the same kind of things. Is to kind of like why it's ridiculous that we still have the 4-team playoff and not the other 12-team playoff, right? Because there's all these stupid rules. So there was an article this week that caught I saw it. I caught a couple people's attention. Basically, there's a couple of students at SMU. They're basic, and when this happened a couple other places too. Basically, they're sitting themselves. They're basically opting out of the rest of the season to keep their red shirts to enter the transfer portal. The quarterback for Boise State, Bur-
Bachmeyer.
Brockmeyer, he also did the same thing. And it's a fascinating look at this where because of the structure of college football, there's it basically incentivizes people to do things that make the sport worse. So because of the transfer portal, because of redshirt eligibility, you incentivize kids to sit if they're not getting enough like snaps or targets or whatever. You incentivize them to sit a year rather than actually just play, because in that case then they're more valuable to their next team, right? Same thing in for the bowls, right? You have, because of the way the New Year's Six bowls are set up, you're basically you're giving these like you're having good teams play other good teams. Well, on paper that sounds great, but at the same time, because they're a good team, a lot of those guys are going to go to the NFL, and because of that, they don't want to risk an injury like what 4 months before the NFL draft, right? So you're basically, and the thing of it is, while yes, like back in the day, and again, you go back 20, 30, 40 years, you had all the Rose Bowls, this big bowl. And at the time, people really loved it. And I'm not completely, I guess, seeped in tradition, but like it never really, like, I don't understand why more people didn't want to crown a national champion. They were fine with this system of like, well, these two good teams are going to play and these other good teams are going to play. Like, I don't understand why they're like, the Super Bowl still existed. The Super Bowl was from the 60s, right? I don't understand why there wasn't a push to have like a national championship game. And it's only really been the last couple decades that we've actually had a college football championship game. Like it started with the BCS 1 versus 2, and people were like, okay, this is really dumb, so let's do a top four. And now people are like, okay, this is also really dumb. We should now do a top 12. I think we're going to stay at 12 for a while. I don't see it jumping to like 16 or. And I think 12 is the right number because it gives like the thing is right, like last year obviously we had a bunch of opt-outs. We had Kenneth Walker opting out and for Michigan State, he went second overall. We had Kenny Pickett opting out for Pitt. He went in the first round to the Steelers. I think Brees Hall opted out of the Cheez-It Bowl. He went to the second round to the Jets. Right. So the thing of it is, like, why are you telling these kids, okay, well, you're not good enough to play for the national championship game? Like, Pittsburgh wasn't good enough last year because they lost a game to, I don't even know who they lost to. They lost a random game last year. And, like, are they the best team in the country? No. Are they a top four team? No. But do they deserve a shot to play for the national championship? Yeah, they do. Right? Like, Pitt deserves a chance to play for it. Last year, would they have won? No. Would I have immediately bet against them? Yes. But they had it. They deserved a shot to do that, though.
Yeah,
And same as Michigan State to a lesser extent. And um, you could have made an argument for Florida a couple of years ago when they did lose a couple other games, but they probably should have made an at large. And you can make arguments for Notre Dame last year as well. There's all these teams that should have had a shot, but because they were shunned by the committee, what we're playing for what, a trophy that you put in your room, one like you put in a trophy case one day, like, I won the 2021 Peach Bowl. Like, who cares? No one cares if you won the Peach Bowl. Like, the Rose Bowl is vaguely it, but even then you started seeing opt-outs of the Rose Bowl. And the reason why you're having that is there's just no there's no value in it. You'd much rather, if you get injured, you could fall a couple of rounds, and that's materially worth millions and millions of dollars to you, rather than playing in a game that will not impact the rest of your life, whether or not you win it or not, right? So we need to get to the basically we need to get to the 12 team championships. And the problem is, if we once we do that, then it's going to make the other bowl games seem meaningless, which, guess what, they are.
they are already
That's the
exactly.
thing, right? Like, let teams, like, the other bowls are kind of fun, right? Like, you have the Cheez It Bowl and whatever. Like, let bad teams play in those games. Let's have some fun in those games. But
Yep.
let's let the teams that actually have good players that are going to the NFL, let them actually play out. Let's let them actually compete for a national championship game, right? And yeah, that's my take on it. And I don't understand what's taking so long in this. Like, they're like, okay, we definitely can't do it this year. I'm like, well, okay, that's kind of fair, I guess. I mean, I guess the Rose Bowl has been planned, I guess, even though we don't know who the teams are. I guess you theoretically can't just play two different teams there, fine. And like, well, we can't do it next year. I'm like, well, that's a bit weird. I don't think you're that far in advanced planning stages of the Rose Bowl that you can't put two different teams in there, but okay, fine. But like, maybe in 24. I'm like, well, I don't know how maybe. Like, again, if you've told me you've planned next year's Rose Bowl out enough that you can't put two random teams in there, you're telling me you can't plan the next one. Like, it's ridiculous to me. Like, if we do end up having to wait until 2026, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, like, I don't understand how we can't. Like, again, remember in COVID, there was one week when I think we were talking about specifically a New Year's Six bowl bid in, or maybe even a playoff berth, and it was undefeated Coastal, undefeated BYU, and both their
Yeah,
opponents had canceled because of COVID, and they were able to throw that game together in a week.
it was an
We
awesome game
it,
too.
it was an awesome game. We can't do that for the national championship game, where we're going to be advertising for millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off advertising in those
Yeah,
games. You're
yeah,
telling me we can't, like, you're telling me that right now we are so locked in that the Rose Bowl, we, like, instead of having two teams play in the Rose Bowl, we can't have two other different teams play. Like, they don't even know who the teams are in the Rose Bowl yet. It doesn't matter. It's not like
yeah.
we're like, what did you paint the one end zone Pac-12? It doesn't matter. Like, that's like, it doesn't, like, you don't even have, that isn't true yet. Like, it's ridiculous that we can't do it. We could do it this year if they really want. I mean, maybe, I guess, theoretically, competitive integrity, something, something, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Maybe not this year. There's no reason we can't do it next year. And there's even less reason why we can't do it in 2024. So, I don't know. That's my rant. I think it's just ridiculous that we're going to have to wait years for this. We should be able to have this at least next year, at minimum next year. But if we have to wait another year, I guess that's okay too. But we really should be able to have this as of next year. I see no reason why we can't have this next year.
I agree. So you you hit on slash prompted three thoughts. Number one, what do we love about college football the most? It's the traditions, right? We can't say that everything that we do is a great tradition, though. Jump around is a great tradition. There's a lot of great traditions. Guess what? A stupid bowl game between two teams that went 8-4. That's not a great tradition. A bowl game that matters, which gets me to point two, when you incorporate playoff games into the bowls, that is a superior idea. Is it superior to a tradition that's established? Yeah, because it makes sense. And to your point, there is more utility and usefulness, and it is meaningful. The third thing, this kind of, I'm just going to take this a little bit differently, and I don't know if I've run this by you yet. I think that there's five G5 conferences and there's five P5 conferences. We need to pair up each each P5 needs to be paired up with a G5, and the last place team in the Power Five plays the champion of the G5 in a relegation bowl. And I tell you what, you will if you put that just like in the Cheez It Bowl, that'll have the highest ratings that it ever had, and it'll have by far the highest attendance because you're going to have anxiety. Say that it's Colorado is playing San Jose State for the right to be in the Pac-12. My God, I guarantee. Can you imagine that? How much more just that game means than any Cheez It Bowl in the history of
Yeah,
Cheez It Bowls?
I'm just already thinking about that. That'd be so amazing. Oh my god, that would be amazing. That would be
Yeah.
so good. But
And
like,
you'd have five of them, five
yeah,
of those. Oh my gosh.
yeah, you have,
It would literally lead like college game day or whatever they do as the equivalent during bowl season.
yeah,
It would be, oh my gosh, San Jose State's in the Pac-12 now.
yeah, and like they have that for like in English soccer, they actually like I think the top they have like relegation playoffs now. So like the top team automatically goes in, I think, but then like the next two they have like a couple playoff games. So like it's similar. And like you're telling me English should do something, we can't do it too? Like come on. Well, I mean, I say we as pejoratively for North America because I'm not actually an American, but this is the thing. Like come on, we could do this. Like this isn't that crazy. And like again, like there's no reason why Rutgers should be in the Big Ten. There's literally no reason. Like I don't know why they're still in the, like again, if there's relegation, they would have been gone years ago. Like this is the thing. And like like you deserve to have the ability to move between the leagues. Like some of these teams are bad and like honestly if you made a bowl game between like a bad team and a good team, shout out to Sickos committee. Like, come on, like we'd all love to see like a Nebraska relegation game or something. Like, come on, like this is the
Yeah,
thing. So no, that would be amazing. Like the thing is, these bowl games are meant to be exhibitions, and like for some weird reason, there's now all these media advertising dollars attached to these, and I don't understand. Like, does Duke's Motor Oil really get a bump in sales because they sponsored a bowl game between UCF and Memphis? Like, is that a thing that happens? Like, I don't know. I don't think so. Like
yeah,
it's such a crazy environment where like there seems to be like there's all these people sponsoring these meaningless bowl games that some of them are good and some of them are bad, but most of them are not particularly good, right? Like most of them are like, yeah, okay, that was a football game. But like that's the thing, right? Like a lot of them aren't that good. Like I love meaningful bowl games, a meaningful playoff, right? Like games between teams that actually have a meaning rather than just like, well, the chart says Big 12 3 versus SEC 4, so there we go, right? Like this is
yeah,
so no, it's yeah, I'd love to see meaningful bowl games. And honestly, having relegation games in the bowls would be so fun. That'd be an amazing Saturday whenever that is. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right. Time for the official podcast plays.
Yes.
Okay, so last week we went 7-1,
Wow.
which brings us to 14-3 over the last 2 weeks when we actually started to actually declare the official podcast plays at the end
Yes,
here.
and I think the one was UNLV, right? Versus
Oh, last week?
yeah, what was
No,
the one? I think it was
it was it
UNLV,
was
right?
it was one of my bad calls. I can tell you that you were perfect on the podcast plays.
No, well, so I wanted to mention that too because I believe the one was UNLV, and the thing is, like it wasn't that like you don't have to take the L completely there because I also had you like had because you sent me your picks earlier, so I picked different ones, and I had you not had UNLV, I would have had UNLV. So we were both on that one there. We both had UNLV more than 14-point favorites, and to be fair, had they not started the game down 17 points, they probably would
Yeah.
have covered the 14. It was actually so funny because the end of that game featured like a UNLV pick six and I'm like, just a meaningless pick six because they only won by 10. I'm like, whatever. This game sucks. Just a meaningless pick six at the end. Like, but I mean, it's obviously meaningful to a lot of people, but it's just like, it's a meaningless pick six. But no, all right. So no, like we've actually done really well on this. Now watch this week we'll like do horribly, but let's see what we can do this week. So what's your
Yeah.
first pick?
My first one is again, this goes totally counter to what I was expecting, which I love at this time of year. I'm gonna take and I think this has moved a little bit. I got Arizona State plus 14 hosting Washington. And I don't know what my model hates about Washington. Arizona State was a little plucky against USC. I can kind of see a case there for 2 scores.
Yeah, I like this too. My model also has this randomly close. I was looking at this and I'm like, that's a weird play. And then I saw you're on it, and I actually like that too. Yeah, I've got Washington was only about a 5-point favorite. Like Arizona State was plucky against USC. Now, again, to be fair, you have the effect of like they're getting their best, obviously, right? But like Emory Jones moving the ball well, and again, like we're looking at a point now where it's been a couple weeks since the firing of Herm Edwards. Now, whoever's running the program, I actually have no idea. Whoever's in charge of the ship, they seem to have basically righted the ship somewhat, right? So, um, I think this Washington team is potentially a bit vulnerable, right? Like we were all super high on them. They beat Michigan State, that maybe is really bad. Um, they did some other decent. They crushed some other teams. They crushed this Arizona, or they crushed Arizona, I think, or they crushed someone I can't remember, but
Stanford,
Stanford. Yeah, they crushed
which is
Stanford.
turning out to be a nothing burger now.
Exactly, but then they got absolutely stomped by UCLA, and I don't think this Arizona team is that bad. So yeah, I definitely love the 14. Is this a late game or not? I can't remember. This game, I think this is actually because I love having a couple of late game picks because then you get to stay up and watch that late. This is a
And this is 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, so this is actually relatively early in the day, which is kind of weird for a game
Oh
between two
no.
teams that are literally on the West Coast. But yeah, not the latest game, but still a good fun game to watch. I'm actually pretty excited for this game. All right, and I'm on it too. All right, so my first pick, I am also staying in the Western time zone. I am going Stanford +7 versus Oregon State. So this is a little ugly, and I'm not the biggest fan of this, but the model is saying, hey guys, like Oregon State played pretty badly last week against Utah, and Stanford has like not been competitive in a lot of games, and this 7 sticks out as like I saw this line and my first instinct was like, man, that looks really weird. I'd love to scoop up Oregon State, and Oregon State laying 7. And then I looked at the model. My model basically has this as like a pick. I think I've got this with I think I've got what? I've got Oregon State -1. So I'm not standing in line. I'm not standing in the way of the model. Tanner McKee actually has had NFL buzz. I think maybe it's time for him to kind of live up to that. I'm gonna go with Stanford +7. I don't hate the money line there either. This is a late game. This is happening at 11 o'clock. So if you want, if 11 o'clock at night. So if you 11 o'clock Eastern at night. So if you want something to palate cleanser there at night and a nice little dog there at night, yeah, Stanford and the points over an Oregon State team that may have been a little overhyped after they beat a Boise State team that's like disintegrating in front of our eyes.
Very fair. Well, I didn't see that one at all. Interesting. All right. As my dog barks in the background there. My second will play. I just spent 10 minutes writing a deep, long love letter to is James Madison giving 10 at Arkansas State. Don't know if this has moved since, but I've kind of made the case for all things related to JMU. One other thing, since we're talking about them, that I forgot when I was pounding the table about them. They, on the season, they have played 4 games and they have a point differential of plus 124. Not bad. Yeah, I'll happily give 10 at Arkansas State and all the nonsense that Butch Jones brings along with the Red Wolves.
It's 11 and a half now.
Okay.
So that's
I, I
yeah,
got a great
that's
price then.
yeah, so it's about the same. I mean, there's not a ton of difference between a 10 and an 11 and a half. Like yeah, the 10 gets you push equity, but the 11 and a half about the same. I'm a little hesitant about this one. They did kind of they had to put their foot on the gas in the back half to cover against Texas State, but it is Arkansas State. They have to cover by less. They had to cover like 22, I think, last week. So it's a shorter round, but again, the team is better. So we'll have to see on that. Okay, so I actually here for my second pick, I had actually penciled in Kansas State -2, but we kind of talked about that one earlier. So I'll slip in another one here. I actually love Illinois -3.5 or 3 against Iowa. Uh, what's so funny? Keep the continual fading of Iowa here.
Well, there's that, and there's just at this point, everything involving Iowa is just comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing. I like. I can't like this Illinois team might actually not be bad, and this Iowa team might actually be bad. Like objectively, Iowa should have fired their head coach, not Wisconsin. And I like I don't understand why, like, people are like, oh, here's guys in the hot seat. I don't understand why we're not talking about the head coach of Iowa here. Like, this offense has regressed. Like, it's literally worse than last year. So yeah, I'll take I'll take the or I'll lay the points there with Illinois. This Illinois team is not bad. I feel like this -3.5 is a little insulting. Like, I think this Illinois defense isn't horrible, and I think their offense is definitely gonna, like, again, if Illinois goes up, if Illinois scores 3 touchdowns in this game, can Iowa really, like, are you really, do you think Iowa can really score like 2 touchdowns and a field goal? Actually, they'd still be covering that. Like, if Illinois puts up 21, like, do you really see like Iowa scoring
No.
like 20? Like, no, that's the thing. So yeah, give me the, I'll lay the points.
Uh, to your point, they've actually improved from last week. Last week I had them, I think, like number 6 or 7 defense in the country. I have them now number 2, Illinois, that is. So I also laugh just because this is just this is just that last week, um, Illinois Wisconsin on steroids, where you know they're going to run into a more stout defense, and it's just going to be bowling ball against a brick wall, and who wins? It's just going to be 4 quarters of that. Just so Big Ten West. I love it.
Yeah, I don't expect Illinois to blow them out like they did against Wisconsin, but like when you're laying 3.5, 7 is a, like, 7 points is a gulf basically. It's like it's a chasm.
It's
Like, you're
yeah,
like,
no,
oh
in a
man,
regular game that's like 2 touchdowns.
yeah, 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, down 7. You're like I was down 7. They're like, oh man, this would be really tough, man, to come back from this. This is almost insurmountable.
Yeah. Um all right, my next game is, and I don't know if this is moved, Western Kentucky plus 6.5 at UTSA.
It's the same now, yeah.
Okay, my model just loves Western Kentucky for some reason, and I I'm not sure exactly why, although they seem kind of legitimate though, right?
Yeah, I love that. I'll take the points here definitely. And I don't understand why they're that, like, I kind of think they should be favored. Like, this UTSA team is definitely not as good. I One thing I will say that I do worry about here though is I kind of worry that we're like, because we I had, now again, this is probably a bit fluky. I had Western Kentucky against Indiana, and they covered, they didn't win outright, and they should have won outright, but they didn't, and I'm a bit sad about that. So I do worry a little bit um about that, but I think overall, I think we should be fine with that. So I think I'll take the points, maybe even take the money line. But yeah, I absolutely do love Western Kentucky as well this weekend. So yeah. Next up, hmm. Well, okay, I kind of do two kind of here. I like Colorado State plus 3.5 versus Nevada, and I also absolutely love UNLV +7 on Friday night against San Jose State. I do not understand why we're getting 7 points with UNLV and we're getting 220 on the money line. This should probably be like a pick. I think, what do I have this at? I actually have UNLV as favorites, actually considerable favorites. Again, like, sometimes some of these teams are underrated, right? And this is, remember I had said to you, right? This is going to be like the, oh, like San Diego's, like San Jose, San Jose State won the Mountain West a couple of years ago, so not the same thing. But I think people are like, oh man, this UNLV team's pretty bad. Like, but no, I love this. Like, I think people thought, like, because UNLV fell down 17, like, I think New Mexico State late beat, like, opened up the game by scoring 17 against them. I think people are like, oh, this defense is bad. They got lucky by coming back. But no, I think this, like, that was just kind of a bit of a misnomer, and I think they're going to be able to come back in full force. Also, Colorado State, Nevada. This Colorado State team is, like, this Nevada team is actually just bad. Now, this Colorado State team is also pretty bad, so I don't love it particularly. But, like, I don't know. I'll just take the points between two kind of bad teams. I don't trust this Nevada team at all. So I'll take I'll just take Colorado State there.
Yeah, and maybe Jerry Norvell knows like the spare parts that he left in Nevada that he didn't want to take with him to Colorado State since he brought like half the team. I gotta
That's true.
wonder like what he left can't be all that great. Um, all right, my last play is South Florida at Cincinnati. This is probably moved, but I got 59 under. Pardon me, under 59. Actually, it's at 59 and a half now. It looks like.
Hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, the that does seem like a pretty high total for two teams that are not the best. I mean, USF, like, the thing of it is, what's the spread in that game? Uh,
It's got to be like 20.
Probably something like that. 27 and a half. Wow. So they're expecting a Cincinnati blowout. Um let me just see here. I only have Cincinnati minus 14, but I do have it going under that number. I have it 30. I have it basically 51. So I definitely have it. I have some value there under 59. But yeah, I actually do really like Cincinnati's quarterback. I think he's actually very good. But again, I don't think the South Florida team is like that horrible. Like, this team did actually cover the spread against Florida. So yeah, if they can make this competitive or just kind of stop points from being scored, 59 is a large number in that case. Um, my next play, this is also kind of ugly. This may be the theme of my week is ugly plays. Auburn plus 30 versus Georgia. That's way too many points. Like, come on. Like,
That's at
30
Georgia?
against, I believe it's at Georgia, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, 30 points. Come on. Like, Auburn, like, if Auburn does lose by 30, like, Brian Harson doesn't make it off the field, right? Like, so are you telling me we're
How many
laying?
weeks have we said that about? Yeah, he's done. Oh, he's done.
No, but like, you're gonna be laying? You're paying minus 110 for Brian Harson to be fired on the spot at halftime. Is that what we're doing? Like third. Like, here's the thing: Georgia can win this game comfortably and not cover 30. Like, 30 is just disrespectful. Like, I don't like
I was going to ask you, is this a disrespectful? Just
like
like,
I mean,
er,
here, like, how many like what George say Georgia scores, I don't know, 40. Auburn can score 10 points against
can
this
they?
Georgia team. Probably. I don't know. They have an offense. It's not a good offense, but it's not. But like, I don't know. This just seems like a way too big of a spread against this Georgia team that's looked suspect the last couple of weeks. But I think maybe that's the point, right? Maybe everybody's going to be on Auburn spread because Georgia's looked horrible, and then this is just the Georgia get right game, and they win like 59-0 or something. But I don't know. I don't think this Auburn team is that bad that they can't cover 30 points. That seems a bit extreme to me. Like, again, if Georgia scores 28, they don't cover this, and then if Florida, like, if Auburn scores, like, if Auburn gets a touchdown or something, then it's a lot easier for them to cover this spread, right? So, like, Auburn can get a touchdown probably.
You're making the exact same case for Auburn that you made against Iowa. In
Well,
fairness,
okay,
though,
no,
Iowa doesn't have an offense, though.
that's the thing, right? Like, that's a good point. I am making the same case, but at the same time, like, Auburn can score points. Like, Auburn has an offense. Iowa does not have an offense. Like Auburn can score a touch. Like, but the thing is, to be fair though, there's a huge difference between Auburn plus 30 and Iowa plus 3.5. Right? There's a huge difference, and also a huge difference between Illinois and Georgia. But like, I'm gonna fade this Georgia offense. That, like, because again, this Georgia offense is gonna have to score 30 more points than Auburn. And if Auburn scores a touchdown or like two touchdowns or a touchdown on a field goal, that 30 becomes a lot harder to cover. Right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Any more? That's all for me. You have any
I'm
more
good. I'm
plays?
good. I'm good.
Okay. So before we get to where our models agreed, just to let people know, my model plays last week were 5-4 against the spread. Money line, they were 4-3 for a profit of 2.6 units on 7 units played. Unders went 4-0. I think I'm going to do a deeper dive next week on what mm, my model and I look for when we're playing an under. And if you want to see what the model plays are this week, just keep an eye on my Twitter account at Buck Metrics, BUCK Metrics, and I'll probably tweet those out Friday afternoon. And hopefully, I will have no misspellings and nothing else indicating of what's going on Friday night and all that involves. So moving on to the week 6 games where both of our models say play. Last week, these plays went 5-1, and they're 10-5 over the last 2 weeks when we started doing this exercise. So this wasn't a play, and I was thinking about it, but I neither of us played it. UCLA is getting 3. I think it's up to 3.5 now.
Yeah.
Um, I show them as 10.5 better. You show UCLA as 13.5 better. So this is definitely play. I think I actually played that already, and I have that money line too. Yeah.
Yep. Same. I did the same. I actually. It's weird that we have that, but like this Utah team did lose to Florida, and Florida's a little suspect, and they haven't really been challenged much since. So I'm kind of on board to fade this Utah team a little bit here.
Yeah, and like I said in part one, my model has UCLA as the top team in the Pac-12 too. So back-to-back home games for them. That's a good spot for them. Next one, Miami. Jesus, I just can't even say this out loud. Miami is giving 4 to North Carolina. I've got North Carolina 12 points better. You've got the Tar Heels very conservatively at 25.5 points better. So again, I played this one against the number and money line.
Yeah, how is North Carolina a 4 point dog against like how? I don't understand.
Well, their defense, but
But it might like did they see the last Miami game? Did they
I
just
know.
forget that game existed? Like
Yeah,
I mean again, that's the concern here is everybody's rushing into North Carolina and then the book knows something we don't, but man though, like yeah, like North Carolina did lose to Notre Dame pretty badly, but like they still scored points and Notre Dame also just scored more points and that's I mean that's how you lose in football, but like I don't think North Carolina's that bad. I'll take the point. I'll keep fading this Miami. You keep giving me points to fade Miami. I'll keep taking them. That's the thing.
yeah. Next one, Florida State is getting 3. I don't know if that's moved since at North Carolina State.
I think I
Um,
grabbed a 3.5 on
okay.
that.
I've got Florida State about 8 points better, as do you. We both got them around the same. I definitely have played this money line and against the number.
Yeah, I have as well. NC State really disappointed last week against Clemson, and this is another one that's really annoying because everybody's like, "Oh my God, maybe this Clemson team is good, guys. Maybe it's their finally." But like this Clemson team is so maddening. Like they're so annoying. Like they're not good. They barely beat Wake Forest. They beat this NC State team. Like they're not a good team. I don't understand why people are so hyped about them. Like their day is coming, but I don't. They're playing like Boston College this week, so it's probably not Boston College, but. Man, though, like NC State put up a pretty pitiful performance against them. I'm gonna just start fading NC State there.
Yeah, I think that they're kind of 8-win NC State level and not what we thought in the preseason. This next one, when I saw that this was a play on my model, my heart sank, and I didn't know if I would have to overwrite it. Um, Vanderbilt getting 19, but you concurred. I have Vanderbilt basically only they should be getting 9. You're showing this should be about 5. All of this completely baffles me, but when I have that concurring voice from your model, I made a half unit play on Vandy plus the points.
I'll have to see. I am a little worried about this, but also at the same point in time, I actually didn't even look at this. I didn't know this line specifically. I some of these ones when it's like a bad team and it says the spread should be closer. Sometimes I usually ignore those. Like I'm not a big one to say, oh, it's a 3 touchdown spread. My model has it a 2 touchdown spread, so let's play that. I'm not usually a big one for that, but like I'm just not a big fan. I don't love this Ole Miss team. I think they're overrated. I think maybe Kentucky was overrated, and then an overrated team being other overrated teams means you're even more overrated. So I don't know. Maybe a little small play on them isn't bad, but we'll have to see. I might play. I might join you with that one as well.
Interestingly, I have Vandy with the same power rating as Texas A&M.
Hmm.
That's weird. I just looked it up because usually a lot of these kind of plays are teams that have are at the extreme when you're talking about like the bad team. They're at the extreme and basically they're worse than their metrics because there's pity shown on them in the fourth quarter, and they can really there's more bad ball that they could muster up if the other team would let them, but they're just not allowed to do so. I don't think that's the case for Vandy. I think they're just kind of below average. So um, yeah, I'm on this one, not with a ton of enthusiasm, but sometimes just got to do what the numbers say. Next one we talked about Arizona State hosting Washington. Lines latest I show is 13 and a half. I actually show Arizona State a point better, which is crazy. You show that this should be Arizona State getting 5, which is still the play.
Yeah, at 13, or I think it's 14. 13 and a half or 14, depending on which book you're looking at. Um, yeah, maybe my model I think just likes Michael Penix a little bit better. I guess that might be why. But no, yeah. The thing is, outside of Michael Penix, this team doesn't really do much, and I think that's what the model is kind of looking at now and saying like this might be a decent time to fade this Washington team. Like Arizona State, they did things against USC, like things people didn't expect. Like I'm not hating the idea of fading of getting on this Arizona State team this week to fade a Washington team that maybe looks like it was a little bit overrated now.
Yeah, and like I said in part one, Arizona State was on Williams, Caleb Williams, the whole game against USC. I mean, they were just in his face the whole time. Um, Next one, I would have not played this at all until I saw it in this exercise. Troy is giving 6.5 to a really bad Southern Miss. I showed the line should be 15. You show the line should be 18. I played this one. Did you play this one yet?
No, I don't think I've played this one yet. I will maybe I'll look at it though. But yeah, not a biggest fan of playing random Sunbelt games that my model finds advantage in, but we'll see. I like my models found it. Like I remember my model had advantage on like Troy against App State, and I didn't play it, and then I should have played that. So maybe I need to play Troy a bit more. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think you're showing here. Southern Miss is going to score 6.
That seems a bit off.
Um, I don't know. I can actually see that being the case. I think there's a huge difference between these two teams. Um, yeah, Southern Miss has some serious problems on offense, and of course, when I say that, they'll probably score 30 here. Boy, my favorite fade for the season total is showing up in a very odd spot here. Northern Illinois is getting 5.5, and I show them kind of unbelievably as 6 points better than Toledo. You show them 10 points better. And just a reminder, I didn't. I think you did bet Northern Illinois when both the models say take them against Kentucky, and they were that was a one-score game. I think they were
Yeah,
getting like 22.
they almost won.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't catch this before in my look through, but yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take the points in Northern Illinois. Apparently the model doesn't hate the Huskies this year. Or just hates Toledo, I guess. But yeah, again, that was kind of when like I was a bit skeptical of fading Kentucky, but when Northern Illinois covered and almost beat Kentucky, that's when I was a lot more comfortable fading the Kentucky last week. And unfortunately, that didn't win, but it kind of almost did win, right? So yeah.
yeah. I hadn't played this one against a line yet, only money line. I gotta see if that number's. I 5.5 is kind of a dumb number. I was gonna see if it would go up to 6. Um, we this was one of my plays, Western Kentucky. I think it's at 7 now. Getting 7 at UTSA. We're both showing that Western Kentucky is better. You have them better by 13. I have them better by 9. So this is definitely I've played this against the line and money line. You
Yeah,
playing this one?
I think I've played this one already as well. Yeah, I love them. I love this game and this spot for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next, this is I should have made this one of my plays actually, but too late. UTEP giving 1.5 at horrible Louisiana Tech. I show this as a 7 point game. You're showing this as a 17-point game, and I think that your model is probably more accurate than mine in this case. Um, Definitely playing this one against the number. I don't know if you're playing this one or I just kind of put it on your radar.
I saw that and I wanted to hear what your thoughts on that one. Where it's wait, is it you're saying it was UTEP minus one?
Actually, no. Louisiana Tech is -1.
Oh, they're up to -3 now. Wow.
Wow.
Okay, I'm definitely playing UTEP now. We're going with our
Yeah.
minors.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
That's right.
definitely. I
Time to mention we are a UTEP football podcast.
We are. Yeah. No, I don't understand why they're -3 now. That's come out to 3, but yeah, I'll like this LA Tech team is bad. Why did people think this LA Tech team is gonna beat UTEP?
Yeah, they're going to score 8 per your model, and again, I think that can be the case. Um, last one. I think if you're doing this, you're on your own, buddy. And this number's come down too, which really scares me. So San Diego State, what is it? What are they at? Like 20 now?
21 and a half.
Yeah, okay. To Hawaii. You and I have this about the same. I show that should be a 9.5 point game. You show it at 9. Um, so model says play Hawaii. Buck Metrics, the human being, says not with my money.
I mean, this is this is also a late game, which makes me more likely to play it. It's 21 and a half. I mean, the thing of it is, this San Diego State team does not deserve to be 21-point favorites against anybody.
That's true.
It's not in Hawaii, I don't think, right? No, it's in San Diego
It's at San
State.
Diego State, yeah.
Hmm. It's tough. Like, here's the thing, it's tough, right? Like, there's a lot of times where I'll be like, "Yep," I'll give the model a blank check. I'll be like, "You go, have fun. I'm good. I'll watch." But man, this one's a bit tough for me to give the green light on. But I think I'm probably gonna end up playing it. We'll have to see, but I think I will. Like I worry about Hawaii. I've touched that stove a couple times this season and gotten burned on it. So I'm not the most. I'm not like, yeah, let's touch that hot stove again. But maybe we'll try. Maybe one more time. Maybe one more time. Make it all back. Make it all Hawaii money line. Make it all back. No, I'm just no. I'm not behind. But no, I like yeah. Maybe we'll one more. Hawaii gets one more shot against like one of the worst teams that I think are one of the teams that I think is one of the worst. They get one more shot.
Yeah.
Prove yourselves.
But boy, I, I, I could, if USC has a very nice win against Washington State and I'm up hugely on Saturday and I'm deeply into the Kirkland vodka, I might make a small play on Hawaii. That's the only way I see. It has to be a confluence of pretty strong events there.
Well,
I can't.
I mean, this is the thing, right? I took like Hawaii plus like 13 against Vanderbilt. That ended horribly. I'm like, oh, okay, well, Vanderbilt got lucky in the second half. There's no way they can. I'm like, 16 and a half against Western Kentucky. They
Western
could cover
Kentucky.
that. And then that was like the last leg in like it was like a three spread parlay, and that got crushed. And now I think I'm really mad about that now. I'm like, come on, like you couldn't like that would have been like it was like a $25 like it was free special bonus $25 to win like 100 something parlay, and I'm like, come, like that's probably, oh, that's why I hate that. I now remember why I hate Hawaii. Yeah, that's why I hate Hawaii. So I'm really pissed about that parlay. You could cover 16 and a half against Western Kentucky at home. I don't know, but again, it's 21 and a half now, so it's a bigger number, and they did beat Duchesne, so I don't know how would they do. Hawaii played someone last week. Who did they? Uh, there was someone who I thought we had value on. The model had value on them playing last week. Who'd they play last week? There's some games that like that game happened, but I don't know what happened in it because I wasn't following it. They played. I think it was like,
No, they were off last week.
were they?
The week before they were at Hawaii or at New Mexico State and they lost by 19.
Oh, that's right. Ooh.
Although in fairness, it's a lot to ask Hawaii to put together back-to-back wins after that big Duquesne win.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Now I'm more scared. Okay. Well, I haven't played this yet, so maybe we won't play this. But I mean, at some point you have to play Hawaii. Like you can't just always fade Hawaii. Well, not you can do that, but like you.
Yeah, they might test that theory. Um,
But I mean, okay, if they don't beat San Diego State, they play Nevada. No. Well, maybe. No.
that might be the spot.
Yeah. Colorado State. Wyoming.
Yeah,
Fresno. Oh God. Utah State. Oh no.
there you go.
That's gonna be the one where it's like 25, 21 and a half, and I'm like, oh no, please don't. And then at UNLV and then San Jose State. God, they're not making a. This is not a good year for this Hawaii team. They're not making a bowl this
No,
year.
no, making a bowl. They're not going to win 2 games.
No. All right. Well, yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, there may be maybe we don't play like they're 0 whatever against the spread because I think they were only like 5 point dogs against New Mexico State, and my model showed
Um,
value. Yeah, 4.5.
yeah, no, they covered against Duquesne, although most people don't count that because it was a FCS team. Um, I think they were 7 point favorites and they won by 10.
ESPN doesn't even have a spread for that game, so
Yeah, yeah, most people don't count those. So, if I
so
think if you're favored by 7 against the FCS team, you just kinda just hide yourself and you don't even count the game.
so then what are they? Oh no, I think they
They're
somehow
1 and 3
covered
because they no,
one in.
they covered that one.
I think they covered the spread against Michigan because they were 53-point dogs against Michigan, and they only lost 56-10 because I think Michigan just got bored
Yeah,
at the end of the game. They're like, we don't need to cover the spread.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's one in basically that's what 2-3 against the spread. One of those was the team not caring, and then yeah, and then a D2 team. So yeah, not the maybe okay, fine, not playing it. I will not fine. I will not play Hawaii versus San Diego State. We're not playing that game. I'll just keep my Stanford ticket against Oregon State instead, though. There you go. That's my official Pac-12 After Dark play, not the unofficial Pac-12 After Dark game, which is Hawaii versus San Diego State. All right, so I think that's about it for this week. Any other plays you had, or we are good? I think we're good for this week, right?
Yeah, that's enough for me.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the season here. Don't we get when does the first ranking come out? Is it this week?
I think they wait until the end of October.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. It just like would rather just don't randomly have Clemson in there because like
Yes.
Clemson's going to lose
Yeah.
eventually, just to someone.
I wanna see if they're gonna put James Madison there, if James Madison is 10-0, just for, like, ranking's sake, or if that's gonna be too much of a crap storm that they would stir up with that.
I don't think the committee cares about NCAA rules. They like they're anti and like they don't care. Like I mean, didn't Ohio State have a BCS bowl ban and they're like we don't care. We're going to rank them anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that might have been the case.
Or no, that was before the committee though. I think the BCS had them like third or something, and they're like whatever. I can't remember, but no,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah.
so. But yeah, I don't think the committee cares about NCAA rules. Like they're not even part of the NCAA. Like people wanted them
No.
to like the some people in college football, and they probably still do. They want to break off from the NCAA and have college football like the CFP run everything. So like, do you think they're gonna care about the random 1 year bowl ban? They're like, like watch them. Like, can they invite them to the CFP then?
They yeah, now you're getting, like, to electoral college kinda stuff. I don't know how that works.
Lose the popular vote, but win the electoral college.
Yeah.
I don't know if technically that would there's probably a weird rule book there somewhere about what's considered postseason eligibility. Because technically it's an invitational, but at the same time it's not an invitational. It's a postseason. Anyway, that's very complicated. But anyways, they're probably not going to invite them anyways. But it would be funny if they did rank them though, which they probably will. Like, because I think they do a top 25. If I'm not mistaken. They
Yeah,
don't
well,
just
that's
stop
what
at
I'm
four.
saying, yeah, just to put them
So
like, in 25. So,
yeah. All right. Sounds good. Well, let's. I can't wait to see where they put James Madison. Hopefully, James Madison wins out, so we can get an answer to this question. I'd love to see that.
yes.
So, all right. Here's hoping for James Madison win this week. Outside of that, thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week.